How would you like to achieve your first million? And today we have James, a several times exit tech entrepreneur joining from United States. So James, tell us, what are the 5 steps to make your first million in business?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Harry, thanks for having me on this episode. I'm really excited, to be here. So when I look back over the 7 exits that I've had, the very first thing that I would tell any entrepreneur is when you lay out that initial plan, right? That initial business plan. If that plan doesn't clearly articulate to you where that first $1 million is going to come from, you need to stop. You need to ask yourself, why am I not thinking big enough to the $1 million? In my own personal journeys through all of the companies that I exited, I had an interesting characteristic. My companies doubled in size year over year for the first 5 years.
Wow.
1 million, 2 million, 4 million, 8 million, 16 million, 30 million. That was an average, Harry. And if you ask me, did I plan that we were going to we were going to get to 32 million in 5 years? No, that's not. But what I latched onto, the third element of this, was finding through the initial 12-month period, you're going to do 60 to 90-day sprints in verifying what I put on paper when I did my initial business plan. Is it working? Are customers responding? And and you find the products and services that, number one, people are responding to. Number two, you want to look for the products and services that are generating the most margin, not revenue, margin in the business. Vern Harnish, I got his book on my back shelf here, and Scaling Up said 80% of your margin in the business comes from 20% of the things you do. It's brilliant. And he's right. And in my own journey, you hone in on those 20% items. And then I'm going to use an expression: you rinse and repeat. It's not glamorous. It's not, I'll call it this glorious experience. You are literally rinsing and repeating over and over and over again, doing more of those things that drive the margin in the business. Ultimately, customers are happy because that's the thing that they're buying from you. And then you get to the point at the end of that 12-month journey where if you've chosen the right products and services, I can absolutely guarantee you're going to get to the $1 million because people are responding. Now, the telltale sign is you keep banging on the rock, to use my dad's expression. My dad would say, you bang on the rock until it breaks. But if you keep banging on the rock thinking you're selling something and no one is responding to you, you need to pay attention and saying, this is not as valuable as I thought it was. Now, in my own experience, in the B2B side, a customer buys something for one of 3 reasons: to make money, to save money, or to mitigate a risk. It's one of those 3 things. So if you're in a B2B situation, you need to ask yourself, can I clearly identify one of those 3 reasons that a business customer is buying my product or service? Because if you can't, I can promise you this: they're not going to transact with you.
100%.
Okay. So in a B2C, because I've had some companies that are B2C, customers are looking at time and value, right? Whether it's in entertainment. We all have Netflix subscriptions. Well, why do we pay for those subscriptions? Because we like the convenience. We value our time. We can sit in our chair and drink the drinks that we like and watch whatever entertainment we want to watch. We don't have to get up and go anywhere.
And it's a lot of value. You pay very
There's
little
value,
and you
right?
have a lot of movies to choose, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of
Amazing.
value there,
Yeah.
So again, it's clearly Again,
Netflix is about saving money. One of the things people
well, it
save
could be
money,
about
right?
saving
Because
money, but it's also time, right? I value
time,
my
yeah.
time, right? And maybe it's time with my family or friends where we're all together in an environment where we like. So I think as the entrepreneurs, sometimes we get a little caught up in our own world, and it goes back to something really specific: is what does the customer want? Seth Godin had a great expression where he said, you don't sell products to customers. You listen to the customer and then create a product to serve
100%, 100%.
right? Which is
Yeah.
which is 100% accurate, right? So that's, to me, five simple. That's the methodology of getting, to the first $1 million.
Becoming a millionaire as a tech entrepreneur is easy. So people, James, might have this idea because out of this podcast on a stop of 5 steps how to make your first million, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6 entrepreneurs that have attended to this broadcast like you, they have 2 exit, they have 1 exit, they have become millionaires in tech. And our audience of entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs, they might think that it's easy to become a millionaire in the tech space. Nobody talk about all the massive level of failure that tech businesses have. And this is the clear example of tech entrepreneurs that come to see me to help them. And this is the structure that they have. They love the product. They're so in love with the product that they want to develop this software that's going to change the world. And then they ask all the money to friends and family to develop this software that's going to change the world. Then they remortgage their house. And after that, they don't have any more resources left. And they have a big elephant. They're coming to me, Harry, help me. We cannot sell it. We cannot find investors. So, James, tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly of tech businesses, so our audience can have a clear. We don't want to send a wrong signal out there, because people say, oh wow, James, 7 exits in the tech, wow, I'm gonna do tech, I'm gonna become a millionaire, I only need 1 or 2 exits and I'm gonna be okay. So what is the good or the bad or the ugly of the tech businesses? Is this really that easy become a tech multimillionaire?
So look, I think your first comment is really something that people should pay attention to. That if you think that I did a survey in a review earlier this year. There are over 5.5 million businesses that are started every year in the United States. Within the first 5 years, 80% are going to fail. 80%. Okay. It's a huge number. Over 4 million businesses will fail. And you have to kind of step back and ask yourself, what's happening, right? To me, that's a catastrophic problem. That's disaster.
I'm aware. That's why we do this broadcast.
Yeah.
That's the main reason why we do this.
And so when I work with entrepreneurs, the first thing that I tell them is, are you really sure that the product or service that you're offering is what the customer is asking for? Really, really work hard at understanding the value, and we call it the UVP, right? But what is that unique value, the differentiator that customers really want? In my last company, we were in a moment in the industry where we were moving from what I call the pay for point of service, the hourly pay, to a monthly subscription service for services.
Wow.
Okay. And customers were in that transition thought as well. Some were deciding, I like that idea because I can normalize my expenses. Others were like, I'm not so sure. Right. And so it was a moment in time where we had to go through a period of people adopting a different different buying pattern.
Behavior,
different behavior. But over time, it became very obvious that is what the customer wanted. They liked the idea of consistent expense control in their business. They saw value in that.
They can do the numbers.
Yes.
And as long as you provide a lot of value, we're talking about Netflix.
You provide value.
As an experience.
And so I think number one, it's really getting into the heart of what does the customer really want, regardless of the business. It can be a tech business. I was just with a friend of mine who she's cut hair. She's had a hair salon for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is not a glamorous business. Okay, she cuts hair. She does, in we converted her business model to 65% of her revenue now comes from a subscription, a membership model. They pay
Wow.
12%.
I'm a big fan of the memberships.
Okay,
Yeah.
so think about that, right? So she gets 12 months every month, people, regardless of whether people show up to get their haircut or not, and she's got
Cash
this
flow.
recurring, and she's got cash flow. So, but what it did was it opened up about 15% of revenue that otherwise would not have been available to her for walk-ins.
Mm-hmm.
Because
100%.
she never had 100% of her calendar booked, right?
Yeah.
So in her best month, she might be getting 60% of her available calendar slots filled with appointments. Well, now she's got 65% of the revenue, which was 100% of what she was getting before, and she's getting an additional 15 to 20% of walk-in revenue. It's brilliant, right? And so my point in saying that is that once you identify clearly, the products and services that people are willing to pay for, that they find value in, then you can start to think about, how do I drive margin and value into my business? Now, look, I don't think any business is easy. They're all hard. Okay?
And that's the truth.
It's hard. So I used to tell some of my business partners in the early stages, when you were struggling to make payroll, or you were having to borrow money to process transactions and do these types of things, I'm like, yeah, this is the glamour of owning your own business, right? This is the stuff that nobody sees. Okay, that nobody sees. But if you want to build a business with real value, okay, you're going to go through these, this journey. Okay, so there's, I would tell you that after my last business, I took a review. It was a pretty good sized company. It was a $60 million a year company, and it was an 8-figure transaction when we exited. And what I did was I took a step back and said, I want to define the things that all of my acquisitions had in common. And those things were very particular attributes. So I'll give you one concrete example. Revenue. When a buyer comes to your business, they look and go, how much of your revenue is one-time revenue versus how much of your revenue is recurring? Because they value it differently.
Absolutely.
Is that recurring revenue under contract month to month? They value it differently.
And how many different contracts you have, even better.
Yeah.
If you have more than one.
Attribute. Yeah, that's another great attribute, Harry, is customer concentration. Does any one customer make up more than 10% of your revenue stream? And so by I kind of distilled it down to 15 attributes. That's what I call the exit ready method. Because if you can clearly see it, and measure against these attributes that matter to a potential buyer, even if you never plan to sell, you're going to give yourself more freedom and more options throughout the journey as an entrepreneur. Okay. So I think, if you want to, regardless of the industry you're in, find the product and service the customer values and rinse and repeat it over and over and over again. Don't create the product first. Find out what the customer really wants.
Unlocking the secret value of a business. Sometimes, James, people don't know. When I ask to the entrepreneurs, which business are you really in? Sometimes they say, like, let's cover the example of the guy with the barber shop, your client. Sometimes entrepreneurs need to look within themselves, look at the business and realize what business are they really in. They have to, you see the story of McDonald's, that they thought that they was Ray Kroc was thinking that the business was in the McDonald's. Actually was a real estate business. And there is a story. I have one client that he managed, he's the CEO around 300 supermarkets, large ones. And his kid comes and says, Dad, I want to do a game with the supermarket. And come on, don't bother me. Dad, I want to do a game with the supermarket. And then my friend took the kid to the IT developers. I said, listen, can you do the game that the kids want to do, so it can leave me alone? And then very quickly, it was a very easy game, like a kid goes inside supermarket and start to eat Coca-Cola, candy, blah, blah, very simple in the mobile phone, nothing. And at the end, what happened is when you win a prize, you need to go to a supermarket and collect it. So
Yeah.
I think that the game has, after that saw the potential, the game have a lot of hundreds of thousands of downloads. And all of a sudden, of course, they have supermarkets all over the country. And all of a sudden, all the kids are playing the game. And they're winning a Coca-Cola, they're winning an egg, and
Sure.
imagine a chocolate egg, and imagine the nightmare for the dad, for the parents, the kid telling, oh, I need to go to collect my egg, I need to go to collect my game because I win it. So basically, the kids were driving the parents to the supermarket to collect the free game. It gets even better. When Coca-Cola and Eleven and everybody find out about the game, they were giving the prices for the game to my friend for free.
For
So the
free.
kid can try the product. So at the end of the day, I think he told me that because of the game of the kid, they increase about 10 or 15% sales.
Yeah.
Imagine of a large group of supermarket, and it was an 8-year-old kid with an idea. And my friend, which is they have a building, things, and he was telling me, Harry, we have a building full of people. Figure out how we can increase
big marketing department, probably.
Then my kid come and with a crazy idea that nobody cares, and looks what happens. So on tapping the secret value of the business, I'm glad that you touch this point. Sometimes we need someone with expertise like you, with experience, because James, it's not easy to find it if you don't have experience. I'm telling you, just sharing the story of my own friend, and even in my own business. Sometimes we have programs, we have business going on, and all of a sudden we find out something, and the clients love it. And who gonna thought that this is what they really love?
Yeah.
And after having different variations, so how difficult is to find this unlock that value, the hidden value in this business? Because let me tell you something that you did with this barber shop, with this hairdressing or whatever, is massive. Because if COVID came, is something COVID, these people are already prepared. They have an extra stream of income that is giving, like you're talking about value. The business is giving monthly revenue because of subscription that values the business a lot. But also the business kind of become more recession proof, COVID proof,
100%.
whatever change proof. So how hard is actually to unlock the value?
So let me give you an example of an entrepreneur that I was working with, and they're in the launch phase. Okay, they're just launching.
Oh my God!
And they had created a product, a set of product or services, and in the dialogue with the entrepreneur, they said, well, we think it's going to cost, based on what we believe the deliverables are going to be, we think it's going to cost the customer somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 for this engagement. Okay. And I said, okay. I said, well, why do you want to sell it to them one time? And they said, well, we need to get the capital. I said, oh, okay. I said, well, how hard do you think it's going to be to get a customer to part with $15,000 or $20,000 to a brand new company? I said, I can tell you, it's going to be hard.
Oh yeah.
I said, but what if you went to them and said, for $750 a month, I'm going to give you X deliverables every month. You're giving them the same product and service. You're giving them the exact same thing, but it's over 36 months.
Mm-hmm. So you're diminishing the risk.
Like $750 doesn't sound risky. Doesn't sound risky to me. All right. Number one. So I removed
someone that nobody knows. For someone that nobody knows.
I removed a very important barrier. Right. I removed a barrier to a yes, because I know that as a new company, there's going to be a risk concern. And so what the point of making this comment is to think about what are the barriers to a sale. Okay, the customers identified that they like what you're doing, but what are the barriers for them to say yes? Okay, number one. On the flip side, I know that by generating a 36-month agreement is going to be much more valuable to my company long term
100%.
than a one time sale.
Absolutely. To find
And so
investors.
by walking into your business with this mindset of, I want to drive value in my business. I want to lower risk for my customers. I want to lower risk for myself. Because look, $20,000 is a big ask, right, for a brand new company. It just is. Okay. And so I have another example of an entrepreneur who she resells packaging materials to large companies that ship things all over the world. And I said, look, what I would recommend you do is, after you get your buying pattern kind of down with the particular customer, go to them with a program. Go to them with a program that you're going to have a minimum ship every month of certain materials, because you see it in their buying patterns. After 6 months, you probably know what they're going to buy. Offer them an incentive to buy those things. Maybe it's at a discount. Maybe it's why? Because they're probably going to buy things above and beyond what they would normally buy from you here. And there's your opportunity to drive more margin into the transactions. But offer them an incentive, create a package for them to spend money with you on a monthly basis. Monthly
it will
ship.
Increase the margin. It's a great idea.
And exactly, that's where
because if you have everyone in the membership, but you know what everybody's going to receive monthly, now you can go to your supplier and tell, look.
That's exactly right, Harry. You go, and that was the second part of that equation, is that now you know you have a volume. You go back to your supplier and say, I have this volume. I want an additional discount when I go above a certain spend with you on a monthly basis. And so now you're driving margin into the business by that volume. Right.
Which it was something very important that you stretch out, James, that we need to talk about this. Margin in business. Sometimes, right, with startups, especially, well, the tech space, but in general business, we have this situation that when business is starting out, okay, the entrepreneurs might have the false idea that, okay, they go and they do research online and they think, okay, this company is spending 20% of the revenue in marketing and sales. But the reason why this company is spending 20% of the revenue in marketing and sales is because this company is already at the level that they don't depend on the clients. They already find out the process, the marketing, the advertising, and they are just repeating that process. They already figured out, right? And that's why they're spending 20%. But when you have a startup, James, at the beginning, if you put 20% of the resources only to try to find the clients, to listen to what your clients want, and to figure out what they want to buy, and to charge them more expensive because this is only 20% and you need to spend the other 80% in your software developer, in your product, in this, in that, and you haven't started out, this is, in my opinion, a recipe for disaster. So I'm going to keep it simple for you, James. So I give you $100, okay, for you to start a startup company today, in the tech space, or a startup company. How much of this $100 you will take for product development, yeah? And how much money of this $100 you will take to marketing, sales, to ask the client if this is the product that they want to buy, X, Y, and Z, just to give an idea to the entrepreneurs listening to the broadcast when they're gonna manage resources in a startup, coming from you, that you have several exits, yeah, so you do know what you're talking about. I'm giving you $100. How you split this money, product development, sales, marketing, and this and that. So
I'm going to tell you, Harry, I'm going to tell you that in the early stages of my business, 100% of my time and money was spent on sales.
I agree with you.
And the reason I say that is because I have to be in front of the customer. I have to build a real deep awareness of what it is they're asking for, right? Sometimes we go into our markets and we don't really accept that there's competition. And the reality is there's competition everywhere.
100%.
Okay. and so the reality is, well, if you acknowledge that there's competition, but the customer is willing to share with you the things that they wish were different, right? I wish these things were different with those who are in your competitive space, you really need to pay attention there. Because
so James,
you learn a lot, right? And so this kind of drives to the heart of what I would refer to as cost of sales. Okay. And there's a lot of people out on the internet talking about compensation and compensating sales, and is your sales too high? I think the reality is, if your compensation models, if you're at this point in your life where you're actually paying someone else other than yourself to drive revenue into the business, okay, then that should be a performance-based compensation plan. Now, as you get bigger, so let me just say this: the percentage, to go back to your original question, the percentage of revenue and the cost of sales in my business in the early years was very high, abnormally high. Why? Because I valued growth and transactional volume and margin volume more than I did the efficiency, quote unquote, of the cost associated with the transaction right in the initial stages. As I grew and the dollars got more and the revenue got spread across a multitude of team members, you could drive efficiency into that sales cost in a lot of different ways. Okay. But in the early years, you're just trying to capture market. And so I think it's a little bit misleading to be talking to an entrepreneur saying, you got to get your cost of sales down really low. No, look, I'm not advocating that you pay sales team members for lack of production. That's craziness. And that's what I mean.
Especially in the early stage. The early stage can collapse the company there and then.
Yeah. What I'm advocating, though, is when in the early years, when an account manager and a team member is selling on your behalf, compensate them really, really, really well. If the reason I did that in my early years with my business was because I wanted to drive what I call this desire to just continue to grow the book, right? I want to grow the book. I want to grow the book, and so by doing that in the early years, like I said, in the later years, when you have a bigger company, more revenue, more team members, you have lots of ways to drive efficiency and drive profitability into the business because you have more to work with. So if you take your $100, example, you probably spending 60%, 70% of that, but especially when you contemplate that it may just be you and one other person, it may just be a very small team. You're going to spend you should be spending the bulk of your time understanding the customer, what they want, and finding opportunities, right? Building that pipeline, finding opportunities.
So for everybody, listen up. Yeah. So I agree 100% with you, James. 500% with you. But look, someone that has several exits in the industry, just share with you something that I hope that you can actually even listen this broadcast twice and try to interiorize that all the resources, time, money that you have starting up is exactly to do what James is describing here. You need to go out, talk to the people, talk to your potential clients, tell them that you're thinking to launch this product, if they're going to buy, what fund they're going to buy, how much they're willing to pay. Put all your time and energy on that process, yeah? And if you can't even pre-sell it, and then with that money, maybe you can develop, you start to develop a product or something. But
so look, Harry, one thing that I think is really smart that you said, okay, is time. I want to take a minute and just talk about time. Okay.
Because we're talking about resources. The $100.
Yeah, time
also goes inside this $100 because we're talking about resources, just a metaphor. So people
time is the most valuable thing as an entrepreneur that you possess. And if you want to kind of, it drives some of the entrepreneurs crazy when I ask them to do this. I say, look, I want you to take 3 or 4 days and I want you to do a 15-minute time log for me. Write it down. Every 15 minutes, what were you working on? And they're like, Jim, that's crazy. I'm like, no. I want to know.
See,
I want to know. And it's not for me. It's for them. Because what you find out are what are the things that you are prioritizing in your day And are those the things that you should be focusing on at this stage of your business? Right. And it's very enlightening, because time is the most valuable thing. I can't tell you, you talk about entrepreneurs earlier about coming to you after they made all this investment. They kind of, and let's use an expression, they wasted some time, along with some money, right?
And money,
time and money, right? Precious resources.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed at the number of entrepreneurs that come to me so late, too late. And in the thing that I made I did a talk not too long ago on the value of what I refer to as a circle of advisors. In the early stages of your entrepreneurial journey, even before you start designing your product and services, pick the 4, 5, 6 different advisors that you trust to give you good counsel and who are willing to
willing to take it,
willing to challenge you in the different areas of expertise in there. That's the reason they're there, because they can give you expertise that you don't possess. That value of that circle of advisors is invaluable. Okay. And by doing that, and to use your point, you got to be willing to listen. You got to be willing to take good counsel, even when it hurts, even when you don't like the medicine you're being given, right? It doesn't taste good. You got to be willing to take it, because they're there for your best interest. They're there to see you be successful. And so I tell that to a lot of entrepreneurs whenever I'm working with them, because I love mentorship. I love giving good counsel to entrepreneurs, but I ask them all the time, give me the people who are in your circle of advisors. Who are they? What's their background? Who would you go to when you have these problems? Right? Because I'm gonna be there for a short period and then I'm gonna be gone, and you still need your counsels. Right? So this is really, really critical in this phase. You said something else earlier that I want to touch on, and it's really when we were talking about the first $1 million. And when you get to the $1 million, by that time, you've kind of figured out the things that people want to buy from you, the things that they value. And you're beginning to now ask, you've exited past what I refer to as the stability stage. You've kind of got the launch phase and you're in the stability phase, right? And so you should be thinking about, well, how do I grow? Not scale, but how do I grow? And the distinction between scaling and growing, if I'm going to grow, I have to know that as my revenue goes up, so do my expenses. They're in parallel with each other. Okay, they're in parallel, which is fine. The reason I'm bringing that up is because as you enter into stability and you're just rinsing and repeating and you're doing these things over and over and over again, and you're thinking, okay, now I want to grow. Ask yourself the question, where is the cash going to come from to fund the growth? Because a lot of people don't think about growth as expensive, right? That this is going to cost me something.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so I'll use an example. When in any of my companies that I wanted to grow, I knew I needed cash. And so I said, okay, well, where's that cash going to come from? Maybe it's going to come out of my own pocket. So myself and other partners are going to put cash into the business to fund growth. That's one way. The second way was I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to finance my accounts receivable, because I had recurring receivables, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in recurring receivables that had value. Well, I could get the cash from the receivable early and use that capital to help me fund growth, right? So in effect, I was kind of borrowing my margin, right? It cost me a little bit, but it wasn't, that cost was a very effective way to get access to my margin quicker so that I could go fund growth. Okay. The third way is debt, where you can look and say, okay, now I have a business. It's $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million a year company. And there's a very particular, I'll say formula. It's called the debt service coverage ratio that you can go execute against your business and decide and determine how much can I borrow and pay for with the cash flow in the company. Okay. So those are three ways that you can think about how am I going to fund growth. And that just means I'm doing more of what the customers have already proven they want to buy from us. Right. And I just want to do more of it. Okay.
Growth after $1 million in sales. Been there, and let me tell you something. It was bumpy. Yeah, the first time. Oh my God. I think that I had a property business, and after we said the first million, we said, okay, I'm gonna expand. Yeah. So, and I expanded too fast, and I was using the same income from the company to expand. Yes, so the same profits and everything from the company we were using to expand. But what happened is we were managing 7 houses. At the end of the day, we were managing 14 houses, and we are making the same money, and now I have more stuff to deal with. I have more tenants, and I have the problems that I already have with my 7 houses. That was very little operation. I have the problems of another 7 houses, plus the problem combined of this whole portfolio that I didn't see that this whole portfolio is gonna bring a combined problem.
You're touching.
My goodness, it was until we managed to refine the process. And then guess what happened? Out of this process, I'm asking to the tenants at the same times, look, what are you leaving in the room? And they say, well, because I was doing landing services, I'm based in London. So they're coming to London, they stay for 6 months, 1 year, they learn English after finish university, after they come back to the country. So then I'm talking to them and say, look, why are you leaving the room? And they say, no, because we need to learn English. We haven't learned English. The school is too expensive. So I opened an English school without even know how to speak English in London. Yeah. So I own an English school and I didn't speak English just to my clients. I said, look, go to the school. I'm going to put it very affordable for you guys. You learn that so you spend a long time in the room because I was making money in the rooms. And what happened, it was now the people from the school outside, the school become a very strong marketing thing for my rooms. That I didn't, just by listening to the client, just by trying to serve the clients, to try to keep them to stay longer in the rooms. I on top a marketing strategy that was costing me nothing because the school was also making money. And the clients come from outside, they have the English lessons, and then it was written everywhere, we have rooms. And then the guy said, well, I need a room. And then they were going to our rooms and in a different way. So James, so growth, like I said, it was a bumpy for me. Yeah, obviously I didn't know, and I have the experience that you have been in several business, been through this process several times. It was my first time, but I got something works. The school works, but growing too fast.
Look.
At the end of the day, I end up with more trouble, with more problem making the same money. So I couldn't. I have to even grow a little bit more, in order, and then the things refine, like you said, and then things start to work again. But in the middle,
I think if you want to dial this in for your audience and say, okay, I'm thinking about growth. What do I do first? The very first thing I'm going to go back to the thing I said at the beginning, which is 80% of the margin in your business is probably coming from 20% of the things you do. And it's really looking at that 20% in a very specific way and saying, I need to analyze why the customer is buying this and what are all of the costs associated with delivering those products and services. So, because when I go to do more of that product and service, I'm going to have more expenses. And what does that mean? So as an example, in some of my companies, when I would say, okay, well, I'm going to go sell more of A, B, C, and D. Well, I knew that over time I was going to have to hire more people. I was going to have additional technology expenses. I knew I could categorize all of the cost associated with rendering that growth because I understood what the business costs were just by what I was doing today.
It seems that the logical thing is just to duplicate exactly what you're doing, and you're not gonna make double the money. It doesn't really work that way.
You got to know,
right?
You got to know what the costs are, because, I mean, look, if you're going to hire more people, you're going to have additional payroll, you're going to have additional expenses, you're going to have a place to put them, or they got to work remotely. You got to, there's all these elements associated with delivering the product and services. And so that's where I would tell you that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle is in when they go try to get into growth phase, but they don't truly understand the cost of delivery of product or services. Okay. And then they sell a bunch of, a bunch of stuff, because they don't really understand what it is that's driving margin in the business, and they're not making any more money, and they just made their life crazy. Right. And it's like, well, it's because you really didn't understand the 20%. Where was that 20% that was driving 80% of the margin that was going into the business?
Entrepreneurs deserve to be wealthy, happy, and healthy. And I mean, we take more risks than anybody out there.
Sure.
We generate jobs, positional work, and without us, society can actually, it would be very difficult to function. So we deserve to be wealthy, healthy, and happy. However, James, when you started the business, I always said the business is a skill. The more you practice, the better you become. And when you start as an entrepreneur at this early stage, when you don't know, you haven't got this skill, and you start to practice to become an entrepreneur, you have this product, and then the people ask you for discount because nobody buy you. The supplier want to charge you more because nobody knows you. Then you're trying to sell your product. You don't really have the proposition. You start to talk with the market to see they want your product. Everybody telling you, I don't want to buy it. I don't want to buy it. I don't like it in this form. All this negativity, all this emotional pain. If the entrepreneur is not able to analyze this negative emotional pain, even can end up in physical pain. People can end up with heart attack, with cancer. We had an entrepreneur here in this broadcast. The guy had 3 businesses, turning over $1 million in each of them, and the guy was vomiting blood. And he told me, Harry, look, I took to a point of my life that said, I'm running this business not running me. And he took 1 year off to Thailand. And now he's okay. He's happy. He came to this broadcast and he shared his story. So, James, the business literally, because I also experienced that, if you're not careful, can literally kill you. Because at some point in my property business, I have all the tenants want to speak with me always. Yeah. Because and I'm like, these people are gonna kill me because when I sleep, then they're too many. And they didn't care. They didn't care. It was 3 a.m. Whatever, they want to speak with me. They knew there was a guy that was Harry, and this Harry say something, they can get what they want. And once the client figured out that, they all want to speak with me. They don't want to speak with the manager. They want to speak with anything. And I'm thinking, oh my God. The clients are gonna kill me. They just don't. There are so many, and they all want to speak with me. So I had I had a manager actually, and it was Eva. I said, Eva, look, you are Harry. All this code that's coming is gonna come to me. This is your job. You sort them. You sort them out. The clients. Be nice with them. Give them, the solution that they want, whatever they're concerned. But they need to talk to you, Eva. You spend the whole day in the phone if you have to. I can't, because otherwise I cannot do anything else.
I think you're touching on something, Harry, that I can tell you that 2 things that you said that I think are really critical. One, when you start your entrepreneurial journey, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Okay. After 35 years and 10 companies and 7 exits, I know a little bit more than I did when I started. Okay. And the last company that I had was probably my most fulfilling and rewarding personal journey as an entrepreneur. And one of the things that I did after I transacted the business was I kind of took a step back and said, well, why? Why was that such a enjoyable,
fulfilling experience?
And I wrote a little ebook called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Fulfillment. And I use that word fulfillment specifically because I was very fulfilled in that company. And there were 4 personal attributes that I learned that I needed to possess and practice as an entrepreneur in that business. And I'm going to give them to you here in kind of quick order. The first one was gratitude. Gratitude is an easy, I'll say, pillar to work. It's a muscle. It's an attitude of appreciation every day, even when things are hard. And so one of the simplest things that I tell entrepreneurs when I work with them is get yourself out a little journal and keep a gratitude journal. Just simply write down the things. Take 5 minutes and write down the things that you're grateful for in that day. And I promise you, if you do that over a period of time, weeks and months, you're going to see patterns. You're going to see things that you're really grateful for. The thing it does is it kind of helps you combat the negativity that's going to naturally come in your business. The second was humility. Humility is a very misunderstood term, particularly in modern culture. And all humility really is admitting that you don't know everything. And it's okay to tell your team members, I don't know, but we're going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Or what do you think? Give me good counsel. What do you think we should do? And by doing that, you drive trust and transparency, and you actually create a place in your business where the team is willing. They know it's a safe space. They know they can say, I don't know, or, I made a mistake, without this severe retribution, right? Okay. And I use an expression, the team gets all the victories and the leader gets the defeat. Okay. And so it's a personality and a methodology to use with your team. The third element is the word team. And I'll contradict that with it's not staff. So think about it. When I say the word team and I say the word staff, which one feels better?
Team, absolutely.
Team. And it doesn't mean that
give you the sense that we're doing this together.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you're not the boss. It doesn't mean that you're not in charge. But what it does do is it gives kind of a democratization and the ability for you to delegate responsibility in your business with expectations that, okay, to use your example, you delegated the management responsibility to a person. She knew it was her responsibility to execute, or Harry was going to be upset.
She did amazing. She did better than me.
Exactly. So when people feel like you have that trust in them, right, and it's a team environment, great things are going to happen. And then look, the last one is what I call servant leadership. I'm a real big believer in that. I wanted to live every day with my employee community, asking them, what are your personal goals? What are your professional goals? What is important to you?
How can I help you grow?
How can I help you get to where you want to go? Okay. And by doing that, it literally freed me to know that I was working on their behalf. And guess what happened, Harry? They would run through walls.
Sweat and tears. They
would do anything that I asked them. Why? Because they knew I would do anything that I could for them.
I have employees, James, that we tell them, guys, why are you still around? You can make more money somewhere else, and you have a lot of experience. You're not tired of working with us. And the team is telling us, Harry, we like to work with you, and we are happy with what you're paying us. So that's what look, we get.
I think the point of those four things are just to tell your audience that by operating that way, what I have found was being focused on the outcomes for others, right? In living a life of gratitude, focusing on, that I don't have to have. It's okay for me not to have all the answers. Okay. All of a sudden things got to be a lot easier for me. Right.
James, if someone is in love with this conversation, how people can find you, how this process works?
So look, I created DuBos.me as a resource for regardless of the journey that you're on, whether you're launching your business, you're trying to scale your business, or you're thinking about exiting your business. We have products and programs for all three of those journeys, regardless of where you are in life. And I would tell you that I started this business in a very particular way, because I didn't like some of the things that were happening on the internet, where it almost felt like you couldn't ever get to the person that you were seeing on a reel or on a
100%.
program. And I felt like I needed to make this very personal and put me out there and make
that's why
myself,
it's done me.
yeah, that's the dot me, because I wanted to make it very authentic, right? And you know, this is a journey for myself with the entrepreneurs that I'm working with, you know, to really sincerely help them in their journey. That's not a guarantee for success. There is, if anybody's telling you,
Wow, in business,
I've cracked the code,
my goodness,
I've cracked the code, I'm guaranteeing success, stop. Don't do it.
it doesn't work. Yeah, I think, James, that the biggest challenge that we have is that entrepreneurs, when they trying to find this mentor, right? I think that what everybody's doing, they go to internet, they find someone with a Ferrari, with a Rolls Royce, or the whatever, and I can mentor you, or you can make this, pay me this, and then the entrepreneurs pay a lot of money, they get very little value. Probably they will never meet or have a one-to-one advice
and that's
with
the
that
point,
person,
right?
and at the end of the day, and then they say, you know what, mentorship doesn't work. I'm gonna do this business by myself, and I don't trust in mentorship. Don't trust, and this sadly is what happens. So our listeners, pay attention and make sure when you're hiding or when you're working with a mentor, with a coach, that you resonate. Yeah, you listen to this podcast and you like what James has shared here. That would be a good indicator that you're gonna have a mentor. Find a mentor and a coach that, rather than have shiny objects. I'm not saying that the people that shiny objects they don't they don't know. They also could be a very good mentor. Don't get me wrong, but try to find someone that resonates with you and more have been in the place that you want to be. And if it's more than one time, better, because like I shared with you, the more you practice, the better you become. And this is the natural of business. Somebody that tell you the truth, black and white. Like guarantee your business gonna grow. Guarantee. Well, you have a way better chance, because yeah, it's like if you have a driving. Business is like it's a skill. The more you practice, better you become. If you driving, learning how to drive, okay, if you have an instructor next to you learning, gaining that skill, well, it would be more helpful that you try to gain in the skill driving around yourself without knowing, right? You're gonna get an accident. You can have an accident really fast. So this is what mentorship. So be hire your mentors slow, your business coaches slow, and something, James, that you share that's really powerful is like this, to have that team. I remember in my business, to that manager and to my whole team, I put a sign in my office that said, "Don't come to ask me anything if you don't bring the solution." So they start to come with the solutions, and after they come with the solution, I tell them, "Okay, pick your favorite, because why I should pick it? Pick your favorite, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we have to do something else. This is not about me or about you." And so the whole team started to work in that dynamic, until the point that one day I arrived to the office and they told me, "Harry, go home. We don't need you." I'm like, "What? You don't need paper in the photocopy?"
That's great.
And they telling me, "No, Harry, we can get our own paper in the photocopy. Travel the world, do whatever." Eva, the manager, told me, "In fact, don't come to the office because you have nothing to do. So you're talking to us, don't let us work. Go home, travel the world, whatever." So it went to the point that Eva was coming once a month to tell me what she was doing with the business. She's not going to us. She was telling me, "Okay, I did this. I'm gonna expand this. I'm gonna do this. I'm just listening." Okay, wow. I'm thinking she's doing anything better than me.
Well, I think that's Harry. You're
wow.
touching.
I'm like, wow.
You're touching on something that I think is really important, which is, as you build your team around you, you should have confidence in delegating certain responsibilities to those team members. And if you don't have confidence, you need to make a change. Not because they're a bad person, not because you're
better than me, James. All of them at everything.
You have to be willing to delegate. And the reason for that is because if ever at a point in the business's life that you feel like you want to exit the company, no one wants to buy an owner-dependent company. You have no value in the business if you have an owner-dependent, you know. And so that is the key there.
Okay. Thank you so much, James, and see you guys in our next episode of Unstoppable, how brave entrepreneurs like James break the wall and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Sounds great. Thank you, Harry. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.